Welcome to my world history notes, where I read from the book that I wrote to teach homeschoolers world history, kind of a survey, not real deep, but gives them concepts and ideas they should know about people, places, and things. Um, and it's called Bible Believer Looks for World History. You can find it on lulu.com, amazon.com, or at the Bible Baptist bookstore. Or you just follow me here. Um, we're going to go back to Rome now, and we're going to discuss some events to do with Constantine State Church, the Emperor Constantine. We're going to go from Augustine to the plague of Justinian, the end of the West to the death of the ancient world. So, first, let's move ourselves through the 300s, Constantine's reign and beyond. He reigned as sole emperor from 324 to 337, a controversial and flamboyant man who not only gave Roman Christianity its political muscle, but moved the capital of Rome to Constantinople on the site of what would become Byzantium and is known today as the city of Istanbul in Turkey. The Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople, would continue to exist for 1,000 years after the empire in the West had disintegrated politically and come under the behind the scenes manipulations of the Bishop of Rome. Modern historians aside, even the enemies of the Eastern Roman Empire called it Rome right up until its end in 1453. So when somebody says Rome fell in 476, baloney. The Roman Empire lasted till 1453. It just had gotten very, very small and weak politically. So got to reorient our history, look at the facts. In 332 to 334, Constantine took to the field to assist the Sarmatians. He defeated Araric, king of the Goths, who had crossed the Danube to invade Moesia in 332. When the ungrateful Sarmatians began to raid within the empire itself, he encouraged the Goths to continue their war against them. He did nothing while Gabaric, the new Gothic ruler, crushed Wishimar, king of the Sarmatians. He then let the remnant of the defeated Sarmatians settle in the empire. Constantine then divided the empire among his three surviving sons, but retained complete authority until his death in 337. According to the emperor's faithful admirer Eusebius in his ecclesiastical history, Constantine believed right up until the end that salvation was attained by, quote, entering the mysteries through the sprinkling of water, just like in the pagan religions over which he also ruled. With the heresies of some of the early church fathers accumulating into one apostate edifice by this time, Constantine provided the one thing that was necessary for Satan's success in undermining Christianity, a political state to absorb it. So after 267 years of fiery trials, 33 to 300, there appears a, quote, Catholic, unquote, or universal church. Catholic's a word Ignatius borrowed from Plato, which came to believe several things over the various periods of time in different locales in opposition to the scriptures and the teachings of the early church leaders from Antioch, where Christians were first called so. One of those errors they believed was Mark wrote at Peter's dictation. Matthew wrote a gospel in Aramaic. Second, John the apostle didn't write Revelation, a presbyter did. Three, salvation by works after being sprinkled with water or having water poured on oneself or after being immersed. The Lord's Supper is an unbloody sacrifice offered by a priest, but it is really unbloody blood. Philosophy and science are both equal authorities with the scripture. Tradition is also of equal authority. Infants must be baptized in water to get them regenerated. After a session in purgatory, everyone may eventually get saved. A bishop is the supreme authority, even if he is sexually immoral and a drunk. Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle wrote God breathed, inspired literature. There is no literal heaven or hell, and possibly no bodily resurrection. All local churches were under the authority of the Bishop of Rome through his functionaries in various locations. The Bible includes Bel and the dragon, Tobit, Judith, and possibly the shepherd of Hermas in the Epistle of Barnabas. The pastor of a local assembly is a priest. All these heresies were added to the belief that the dictates of the church should be enforced by civil authority in the same manner that they were in pagan cultures, or in many cases in an even more draconian manner. Several groups of protesters sprang up that in varying degrees fought against the established state church. Although over time they believed in many radically different things, some of which we would not only not understand, but disagree with vehemently today, many of them had a few things in common. They believed in salvation by grace and baptizing only believers. They mainly used the old Latin Bible as their final authority. The local church was an independent entity, bound only loosely to a large organization that could not dictate basic practice, and they were independent of Rome or the civil authority, not acknowledging the right of either to dominate them and not participating in either civil authority or Roman Catholic. Through history, they received different names, under the general title of Anabaptists or rebaptizers. This does not mean that the modern Baptist denominations were once the Anabaptists. This given because they were baptized, the rebaptizer was given to them because they baptized adult believers, even if they had been baptized as infants or children. That's why they called them Anabaptists or rebaptizers. The specific names they received were often given them by Rome and were meant to be pejorative or refer to some part of their beliefs that was thought to be wildly heretical. Some names given to Rome's enemies by Rome were Montanists, Novatians, Donatists, Paulicians, Patarines, Picards, Lionists, Bulgarians, Montenses, Massalians, Euchites, etc. As it turns out, there were thousands, if not millions, of Bible believing Christians who were persecuted by the official church, rejecting what they perceived to be anti scriptural pagan hierarchy hiding behind the church state setup. Each time a group of Christians would leave this system, they would receive names by the authorities to label them as heretics. Some later names in more recent history include dispensationalists, fundamentalists, separatists, Waldenses, Albigenses, Vaudois, Cathari, Petrobrusians, Quakers, Calvinists, etc. So early on, some of the main differences in practice between the separatist sects and the state church of Rome was their view on the power of water baptism, whether or not they should baptize their babies, or whether or not the Christian church is under the authority of the state. So we're going to talk about Augustine of Hippo next, very important figure in Christian history. And I hope you'll study world history. You don't have to agree with what I say, or might find a little nitpick thing about something I've said, but that's okay. You should have your opinion. You should have your opinion based on your study of world history, of ancient history. Have a good day. Talk to you again soon.